Have you ever felt like you're just not good enough? Like no matter how hard you try, you're always falling short. Let me tell you about Amelia. On the surface, Amelia had it all. A decent job, a nice apartment, a group of friends who seemed to care about her. But inside, it was a different story. Every morning, she'd wake up with this heavy feeling, a voice in her head whispering, "You're a fraud. You're going to fail today." This feeling was her constant companion. It followed her to work, sat with her at lunch, and tucked her into bed at night. Amelia was a graphic designer. She was talented, her colleagues said so, her boss said so. She'd even won a small industry award a year ago. But the feeling didn't care about awards. When she looked at her work, all she saw were flaws. She'd spend hours agonizing over a font choice or a color palette, convinced it was all wrong. A colleague might say, "Wow, Amelia, that looks amazing." And for a fleeting moment, she'd feel a spark of pride. But then the voice would return, "They're just being nice. They don't see how bad it really is." Her feelings were screaming failure while the facts were quietly saying success. This battle between her feelings and the facts of her life was exhausting. One Friday, her boss, Mark, called her into his office. Instantly, her heart pounded. The feeling screamed, "This is it, you're getting fired. He finally sees you're incompetent." She walked in, hands clammy, expecting the worst. But Mark smiled. "Amelia," he said, "I just wanted to tell you what a fantastic job you did on the Henderson project." The client was over the moon. They specifically mentioned your creative vision. Amelia stood there, stunned. The facts were right there, spoken aloud by her boss. The client loved her work. But her feeling of being a fraud was so powerful, it tried to twist his words. He's just saying that to be encouraging, she thought. He probably says that to everyone. She managed a weak "thank you" and walked back to her desk, the positive feedback bouncing off the shield of her negative feelings. She couldn't enjoy the win. The feeling had already stolen it. That weekend, Amelia was supposed to go to her friend Sarah's birthday party, but the feeling was overwhelming. "You'll just be awkward," it whispered. "No one really wants you there. You'll bring the mood down." She remembered the last party, where she spent most of the night standing in a corner, feeling invisible. The fact was, several people had come up to chat with her. Sarah had even pulled her onto the dance floor. But Amelia's feeling told her they were just being polite, that she was a social burden. So she texted Sarah a flimsy excuse about not feeling well and spent the night alone, scrolling through social media, watching everyone else have fun. The feeling had won again, isolating her and then blaming her for being lonely. It was a vicious cycle. She felt trapped in her own mind. It was like being in a courtroom where her feelings were the loud, passionate prosecutor and the facts were the quiet, timid defense attorney who barely got a word in. The prosecutor, her feelings, would parade a lifetime of tiny mistakes and perceived slights as irrefutable evidence of her worthlessness. A C- on a high school math test? Proof you're not smart. A comment from an ex-partner years ago? Proof you're unlovable. The jury, which was also her, was always swayed by the emotional, compelling arguments of the prosecutor. The facts didn't stand a chance. One evening, while aimlessly searching online, she stumbled upon an article. The title was simple, "You Are Not Your Feelings." It explained that feelings are like weather. They come and they go. Sometimes it's sunny, sometimes it's stormy. But you are not the storm. You are the sky. The storm passes through you. This idea was a tiny crack of light in her dark room. What if the voice in her head, the heavy feeling, wasn't the truth? What if it was just a feeling? A very loud, very convincing, but ultimately temporary weather pattern in her mind. This was the beginning of a shift for Amelia. She decided to try a small experiment. She would become a detective in her own life, gathering facts to present against the prosecutor's emotional claims. She bought a small notebook. She labeled one side feeling and the other side fact. The next day at work, she finished a design for a new ad campaign. The immediate feeling was, "This is terrible. Everyone will hate it." She wrote that down under feeling. Then she forced herself to look for facts. Fact. I used the color theory principles I learned. Fact. The layout is balanced and follows the client's brief. Fact. My colleague David walked by and said it looked really sharp. She wrote these down under fact. Looking at the two columns, it was stark. The feeling was a huge, vague generalization. The facts were specific and observable. It wasn't a magic cure. The feeling was still there, still loud. But now it wasn't the only voice. The notebook became her defense attorney. When she felt like a failure, she'd open it and read the facts. When she felt unlovable, she'd write down the fact that her friend Sarah had called just to check in, or that her sister had sent her a funny meme. Each entry was a small piece of evidence. It was like she was slowly, methodically building a case for her own worth. She started to see that her feelings were often based on old fears and insecurities, not the reality of the present moment. One of the biggest challenges was social situations. The next time a party invitation came, the feeling started its usual routine. Don't go, you'll be miserable. Amelia wrote it down. Then she thought about the facts. Fact. My friends invited me because they want me there. Fact. I can leave whenever I want to. I'm in control. She decided to go, but with a plan. She set a small, realistic goal. Talk to 2 people. That's it. She didn't have to be the life of the party. She just had to show up and talk to 2 people. At the party, she felt the old anxiety creep in. But she took a deep breath, found her friend, and asked about her week. That was 1. Then she saw a colleague by the snack table and commented on the music. That was 2. She had met her goal. And you know what? She ended up staying for 2 hours and actually had a decent time. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. This process wasn't about ignoring her feelings. That's impossible. It was about acknowledging them without letting them drive the car. She started saying to herself, I am feeling anxious right now, and that's okay. But the fact is, I am safe, and I am capable. She was separating her identity from the feeling. I am Amelia, and I am feeling sad is very different from I am sad Amelia. It's a small change in language, but it creates a huge mental space. She was learning to hold her feelings with compassion, like a crying child, while letting her rational, adult self make the decisions based on facts and values. Slowly but surely, Amelia's life began to change. She started taking more creative risks at work because the fear of failure no longer paralyzed her. She wasn't chasing perfection anymore. She was embracing the process. Her relationships deepened because she was more present, not trapped in her head, worrying about what others thought of her. She even started a new hobby, pottery, something she'd always wanted to do but was too afraid she'd be bad at. And she was bad at it at first. Her first few bowls were wobbly and uneven. The old feeling whispered, see? You're no good. But this time, Amelia smiled. She looked at her lopsided bowl and thought, fact, this is my first try. Fact, it's okay to be a beginner. And she kept going. Amelia's story isn't about getting rid of negative feelings. They still visit. There are still stormy days. The difference is, she no longer believes the storm is her. She knows she is the sky. She has her notebook of facts, her realistic plans, and the hard-won knowledge that feelings are just visitors. They are not the truth of who she is. The real truth is built from facts, actions, and the quiet, steady courage to show up for your own life, especially on the cloudy days. So if you ever feel like Amelia, remember to ask yourself, is this a feeling or is it a fact? Your answer might just change everything. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking the video and subscribing for more content. Take care of yourself.